Hi, I'm Marin Alsop, Music Director of the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. This program is devoted to the music of Robert Schumann, who was such an important figure, not only musically, but also in terms of supporting young artists, being married to the greatest concert pianist of her time. Also, thanks to Robert Schumann, we know the music of Johannes Brahms. He really impacted the development of music on many, many levels. He was an extraordinarily well-read man, loved literature, and most of his compositions were informed by a literary source. We're opening with a piece called Manfred Overture, and this, of course, is directly taken from Byron's writing. And also, there's another dimension to this, which is that Robert Schumann, as was kind of popular during the time, he would often take on an alter ego when he was writing, think of himself in the hero's role or as in this role. So often these literary characters became almost synonymous with his own inner psyche. So there's a psychological component to all of his music. I mean, I should say at this point that he also had a lot of psychological issues. He suffered terribly from bipolar disorder, so he would have these manic episodes in which he would be extraordinarily productive, and then when he got very depressed, he couldn't write at all. He wrote music that was almost autobiographical. The two symphonies on the program, his First and Second Symphonies, were written at various ends of the spectrum. His first symphony, the Spring Symphony, was written shortly after he married his wife, the piano virtuoso Clara. She was almost 20 years younger than he. Marrying her was quite an ordeal. She really understood him on a very, very deep level. The Spring Symphony is so uplifting. It's all about light and optimism, and that was his mood at that moment. Several years later, he sunk into a very, very deep depression, and coming out of that depression, he began his work on the Second Symphony, which is the other piece on this program. You just listen to this start of the First and the Second Symphony, you can hear that he's struggling and that there's tension, and he's trying to dig himself out of this tremendous depression. And eventually he comes out of it. I mean, perhaps composing the symphony is what finally drew him out of this episode. In a way, composing was the thing that saved Robert Schumann from complete madness. It gave a structure to his life. It gave motivation to him as a human being. It gave him validation. It's a sad story, and yet his music is so uplifting. I think it's going to be a fascinating program because we're doing Mahler's versions of both the Overture and the First Symphony. Mahler really went back to all of this music and tried to put his stamp on it and update it for the concert hall of his day. And I think it'll be interesting to hear Schumann's voice through Mahler's voice.